Well, we're speaking about one of the best influencers of our history, and that would be, of course, Abraham, who out of nowhere just led a whole new movement and led people in the right direction.
So if we're going to look to his model and try to learn from him, how did he have influence? What was his method? What was his gimmick? What was his trick? It's really a little bit against popular assumption. You know, we think of people back then, we're talking 4,000 years ago, we think of people back then as not completely evolved. You know, still a little brainless, a little primitive, but it's not true. It's not true. They were very intelligent people. And the idolatry was intelligent. It was not ridiculous. You know, create a little figurine out of wood and then bow to it. No, it was not that unintelligent. There was a lot of thought and a lot of reason behind the idolatry. The first argument was God is very busy. God is very big. Creating this world was not a big, impressive activity for God. It was one of the minor things that he does. You know, pop out a universe every 6 days. Well, no big deal. No big deal. So he must have gone on to bigger and better things after creating the world. And he left the sun and the moon, you know, the zodiac signs. They're in charge. They're running the world now. Of course, they didn't create the world. That's ridiculous. But they're in charge. And so we owe them a certain amount of gratitude or allegiance. And God would want us to honor those forces or those beings that he entrusted the world to, like a king with his ministers. If you respect the king, you got to respect his ministers. And so they worshiped the idols, not because they thought the idols created the world. They knew that there was a great creator who was busy. Can't reach him. So if you want the world to function, you have to thank the ministers, encourage the ministers, pray to the ministers that they do their job, because now they are running the world. Which very simply means God created laws of nature, and those laws now govern the world. God has withdrawn, and what's keeping the world going, or what makes the world go round, are the laws of nature. So you have to respect that. And you have to be grateful to those laws, those forces. And so you have the god of thunder and you have the god of fertility, meaning the power of fertility, the power of electricity, lightning, thunder. They weren't worshiping the sound. They were worshiping the power and the effect of it, the laws of nature, which we pretty much do today. What was their mistake? Avraham came along and said, yes, it's appropriate to respect the king's ministers and to honor them, and maybe even to turn to them for help. You need some money, you go to the minister of finance. So the mistake is that ministers have free choice. They didn't become ministers without their approval agreement. They were appointed, they accepted the job, and every day that they come to work, it's because they choose to. I don't know if it's a free choice. You really can't say no to the king. So if he says you're the minister, then you don't have that much choice. But many ministers come very willingly. They love their position, they love their job, they love their country, they love their king. So it is appropriate to thank them for their participation because they're participating voluntarily, at least partly voluntarily. That is not true of the forces of nature. Gravity does not have free choice. It doesn't schlep things down because it wants to. And then one day it can wake up and say, today I don't want to. To make sure that that doesn't happen, you got to keep him in a good mood. It can't happen. The laws of nature, the forces of nature are completely involuntary. They don't have a will, they don't have an opinion, and they don't have a choice. So what are you thanking? That's like thanking the carpenter's hammer for building the house. You don't thank the hammer because the hammer has no say in the matter. Even a waiter in a restaurant deserves a tip. Why? Because he could not show up for work that day. Or he can refuse to bring you what you ordered. He'll bring you what he thinks you should have. Because he has free choice. So if he does what he's supposed to do and he brings you what you ordered, you got to thank him. But the laws of nature are not even a waiter at in a restaurant. They're just a tool. So you can thank the waiter and you can thank the chef. You don't thank the frying pan. So that's what Avraham was telling his generation. Be intelligent, understand. And it worked. It worked. People do respond to reason, intelligence, and the goodness behind it.
This is exactly my question. What kind of reason would work on the world today? At that time, the world was different. And he explained who to thank. What do we need to explain now to the world in order to be, I don't want to say like Abraham, but sort of like Abraham?
Yes, you can say that because we didn't really change that much. Like this guy who said, same rules from 3,000 years ago? Come on. It's time to update the rules in the Torah. So I said, if you come up with a new sin, we'll make new rules. As long as you're committing the same old sin, the same old rules apply. And we haven't come up with a new sin. It's amazing, in 3,000 years. So we haven't really changed that much. The issues are pretty much the same. The technology is different. Our makeup, our experiences are somewhat different, but the issues are the same. Part of the appeal to what Avraham was saying is the inherent goodness behind it, not just pure logic. If you want to go with pure logic, yes, you're right. The laws of nature are just like tools, like a hammer in the hand of a carpenter, and they don't deserve any thanks. But what's wrong if you do thank them? No harm done. What's so terrible? It's not very effective. It doesn't change the laws of nature if you pray to it or you sacrifice your firstborn. All right. So it's not very effective, but it's, interesting ritual. It's a thing to do. The decency in us does not allow it. So the argument against it really not only appeals to our mind, but it appeals to our sensitivities as well. It's not right to worship something that is more helpless than you. So not only is it not intelligent, it's not right. It's beneath the dignity of a human being. It demeans you. It diminishes you. It's not good for life. It's not good for the human condition. So there's a moral issue, in a sense. And that's what made it so compelling. Avraham's argument was not purely academic. As brilliant as it was true to life. So we have to assume two things. Human beings are intelligent. They were always intelligent because that's what a human being is. We were never animals. God created human beings. That means intelligent beings. So don't ever underestimate the power of logic and wisdom as it affects human behavior. But secondly, human beings are also purposeful creatures by our very essence. In our DNA is made up of purpose. You can make the most brilliant logical argument. If it doesn't have a purpose, the human inside of us loses interest. Not compelling. Yeah, that was very smart, but I don't see the relevance. So that's the second side to the human being. There's a mind and there's a heart. Some arguments, some theories, philosophies appeal to the mind, but it has no appeal to the heart. Aristotle was brilliant. The heart didn't really relate much to what he was saying because it was too idealistic. It was detached from reality. It was a little harsh, unforgiving, but brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And then there are those philosophies that appeal purely to the heart. It's purely subjective. It's just a way of riling up feelings that move people to behave a certain way, but there's no sense to it. There's no order to it. And therefore, there's no permanence to it. It's a little chaotic. If you can have a teaching, a wisdom that is both brilliantly logical and inspiringly meaningful to life, to who we are and what we're doing here, that is so compelling, no one can resist it. So some people will react more to the logic because that's their temperament. Some people will react more to the emotional appeal, but it's not one without the other.
What kind of logic got us to communism, socialism, fascism?
You mean if we're so smart, how did we get to be so stupid?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a little simplistic, but probably true. Let's use communism for an example, or socialism. People are afraid of themselves. We have no discipline. We have no control, no borders. And that's frightening. Somebody comes along and says, here's a principle that we can live by. This will govern your behavior. So it gives you a little bit of a border, a definition, an outline, like a fenced-in area where you can feel safe. It's a very good idea. And it's true. People can't live in chaos. You have to have borders. You have to have distinctions. You have to know where you belong and where you do not go. Otherwise, you have nothing to focus on. I remember we used to go fishing And for some strange reason, I would develop an intense headache. And I couldn't figure out what it was until somebody explained, when you're in the boat, focus your eyes on the boat, not on the water. Why? Because the water has no shape. There's no end. It's just continuous water. And that feels like borderless, endless, pointless, and it gives you a headache. We need to focus on things that the mind can wrap itself around. Looking out on the ocean, you can't wrap your mind around it. So stay focused on the boat. We need that kind of. So communism came and said, here's a rule you can live by. It's a good principle. It frees the workers. It makes us all equal. Okay, that solves a big problem. It is not the definition of life. But at the moment, it seemed like such a great solution to our problem that we made it as if it was the solution to all our problems. It's the solution to one problem, and that is people can't discipline themselves. And so you have to have a strong hand with a strong principle that enforces the discipline. Well, that's a little risky. Who are you going to give that authority to? And who are you going to trust to have that kind of power and not become corrupt? So in a sense, we are spoiled children, frightened by our own freedoms, and we're looking for a tati to take control. Good luck. We're so immature that we need an adult authority. And that borders on idolatry. So who are you going to give this authority to? Someone who himself needs an authority? See, that's idolatry. You're worshiping a minor god who himself needs a god. But this is the point. Torah is brilliant, and Torah is goodness. It's a brilliant kindness. That's what we need. And that's what people will respond to. To just say, be nice, love everybody. All right, that's good for a weekend in camp. But then you get back to real life and it doesn't work. So the reason these ideas are so welcome, I was going to say popular, but that's a matter of opinion. I got a phone call 2 days ago. A man from Tanzania, East Africa. Basically what he said was, our country needs the teachings of Torah. Why don't you teach us? You're supposed to be the teachers. Why don't you teach us? Now, he's been listening to my podcast or whatever it is. I don't know if he listened to this program, but online he's been following, and he's upset. He says, you keep talking about teaching and sharing. How come you don't come to our country? We need you. This is a native of Tanzania. If you enjoyed this conversation or this topic, and you're looking for more information, or you want to hear it again from another angle, there's a way to do that. And that is in this book. It's all there. Order it from Amazon. You can read it, reread it, and share it. We have a Sunday night program for VIPs that you might be interested in. It's informal. It's questions and answers. It's conversation. It's really relaxed. It's really pleasant, enjoyable, informative, and kind of community-like.
It's a Sunday night program. There's a Wednesday morning program for the VIPs, and there's a Wednesday night program. All of it just conversation, casual, laid back, unscripted. So join us. Take a look. Click the link below and see which of the three suits you best, and join us for some enjoyable conversation.